It's Wednesday, the 18th of January, 2023. Welcome to the Fast Five by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, 5 stories in 5 minutes. Let's jump into it. Story number 1, consumer sentiment surged in January by its largest gain in more than 2 years. But, big but here, the ogre of interest rates means that sentiment is still negative.
Love that phrase, Michael, ogre of interest rates. The Westpac Melbourne Institute Consumer Sentiment Index rose 5% to 84.3 in January. Now, Westpac Chief Economist Bill Evans said it's probably because January is the first month since April last year that the Reserve Bank hasn't raised interest rates. Makes sense. The Reserve Bank lifted the cash rate 8 consecutive times since May last year to 3.1%. The central bank's next policy meeting is next month. Bad news really on sentiment is that it's still very, very low. And if rates keep rising, as Westpac thinks that it will, it's hard to see sentiment picking up too much. Mind you, the share market doesn't seem too worried about rates. The S&P ASX 200 closed down just a touch yesterday, but it's still up 6% since the beginning of the year. Aussie dollars trading somewhere between 69.5 and 70 US cents.
All right, on to story number 2, Sean, and the competition watchdog has warned the gas companies that breach the government's price caps face fines of as much as $50 million. That is fairly hefty.
Yeah, pretty steep. Last year, the government introduced price caps on wholesale energy prices in an effort to reduce very high electricity prices. Yesterday, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission released what it's called its interim compliance and enforcement guidelines. A company that breaches the price caps can be penalised as much as $50 million or 3 times the value of the benefit it obtains. Now, the boss of the ACCC said the guidelines were designed to help the industry with their obligations. A $50 million fine threat will probably do that. The price cap doesn't apply to exports. That's really important because we are a big exporter of gas. This really kicks in on contracts signed from now. So some contracts signed from last year, it's still remaining, will still be more expensive.
Sean, story number 3, some very sad news yesterday. Liberal Senator Jim Molan has passed away following a battle with cancer. According to a statement, he died peacefully in the arms of his family.
Yes, tributes flowed immediately. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese called Molan a man of principle and a politician of conviction. He lived his life in the service of our country, the Prime Minister wrote on social media. Other politicians, including Communications Minister Michelle Rowland, Opposition Foreign Spokesman Simon Birmingham, and Liberal MP Alex Hawke expressed their condolences. Major General Andrew James Molan was certainly one of our best.
Indeed. Sean, story number 4. Yesterday, we talked about Super Retail Group. Today, we're talking about JB Hi-Fi because the retailer says that it has posted record revenue and expects record earnings for the last 6 months of last year.
Yeah, given we've had so many rate rises, 3 percentage points last year, it's remarkable how well the early signs of spending over Christmas are. People were out buying electronics and appliances. Now, there was a big boost for JB Hi-Fi during the Black Friday sales and the Boxing Day promotions. It's expected to make about $330 million for the final 6 months of last year. Not bad. It's a very well-run company, this one, Michael. Has been for years by its previous CEO and by its current one, Terry Smart. Mr. Smart yesterday said trading conditions had started to normalise following 2 years of COVID disruptions. That's good news all round. JB Hi-Fi's share price jumped sharply yesterday, the day before Supercheap's share price jumped sharply.
All right, Sean, story number 5, our last one. The Chinese economy, which is obviously all important to Australia, has posted its second worst economic growth performance in half a century on the back of crippling COVID restrictions.
The world's second largest economy posted a 3% increase in growth for the 2022 calendar year. For a country used to growth rates of around 7 or 8 or 9%, that is pretty slow. The number was actually better than many economists forecast, but growth in the final quarter, the December quarter, was half the level of the September quarter, showing that China had ended the year with a whimper thanks to all those COVID lockdowns. We really care about this in Australia because China buys raw materials like iron ore and coal from us. It also buys many services, think education, tourism. So a slowdown in China isn't good for our economy. I suppose the good news in an economic sense, if not a health sense, is that the zero COVID policy has been dropped. Things are certainly picking up in China. Apart from fewer lockdowns, the Chinese government looks like adopting more pro-business policies, including in the critical property sector, and becoming less restrictive in trade terms. We've seen the Australian lobster industry benefit from that.
All right, there we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Wednesday, the 18th of January, 2023. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. Very important. And if 5 minutes isn't enough, you can also find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed, wherever you listen to podcasts. Plus, every Wednesday, a new episode of How Do They Afford That, which is our podcast with Canna Campbell, the founder of Sugar Mama TV, all about making your money work a little bit harder for you. New episode out today about risk profiles, but you can find a whole bunch of good stuff, including the FIRE movement, paying your home loan, New Year's resolutions for your money. We'll put a link in today's show notes. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast Five by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.